Hello, and welcome to The Nature Connection, Science, Wildlife, and Environment Radio, with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy.
Hey everybody, this is Lisa with Big Blender Radio, and today we're on our Nature Connection segment, and we are live, well, we're not live, but we're on location in the Yuma East Wetlands, which is right by Gateway Park in Yuma, Arizona. It's a right part of the Crossing Heritage Area, the Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area. It is a wonderful birding destination, and I am sitting with Nancy Meister. Nancy is the president of the Yuma Audubon Society, and she's also an organizer of the second annual Yuma Bird, Nature, and History Festival. So that comes up January 10th through 12th, 2020, and you can check out the itinerary and everything. Just go to yumabirdnaturehistoryfestival.com. So Nancy, it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Lisa. It's good to be here with you.
And this is better than being on a phone and doing an interview like last time, isn't it?
Yes, it's a lot easier to look you in the eye.
And hear the birds.
And hear the birds. In the background, we have a verdin calling right now.
Oh, aren't they? That's past their little baby time, right?
Yes, it should be.
Yeah. So January, we think about January being winter, but you say that this is actually a really good time to come here and go bird watching?
Oh, absolutely, because we have the birds that are getting out of the snow. So we get a lot of ducks. We have a lot of geese here. We get shorebirds here. So although we don't get, the warblers might still hang around in smaller numbers. They usually just pass through in migration, either in the spring migration or the fall migration. But we do have a lot of birds here to see. Hawks stick around here in the wintertime, so if you want to see a ferruginous hawk, this is a place to come.
What about osprey? Because that's something that we've seen a lot of. Is that the right time frame? I never remember when we see them.
Yes, you will see. And over in the West Wetlands, there are about 6 of them every morning that do fishing in that artificial pond over there. It's pretty cool to watch.
I've seen them. I've actually filmed them. They circle around, and then there's also a big great white, not a great white egret? Or
it's
great egret?
It's a great egret, yes.
I'll get it right. I just have to hang around with you more. I love the West Wetlands Park and West Wetlands because you do see waterfowl there all the time. You see beaver here in the East Wetlands, but also in the West Wetlands.
That's true.
And I've seen a lot of flycatchers.
Yes, in the summertime and in the winter we see the ash-throated flycatcher, which is a beautiful bird. It's large and easy to identify.
See, that's why I know it. But by flycatcher only. Okay.
But in the late winter we'll also see the western flycatcher here. And one year we had the streakback oriole. That was a wonderful wintering over bird here, which was drew a lot of people from everywhere to come and see that.
I've seen the Vermillion flycatcher in the Gateway Park area. And everybody, we're right on the banks of the Colorado River, the lower Colorado River, and it's so beautiful out here. I wish you were here right now with us. But I've seen the Vermillion flycatcher out there quite a bit. And is that more of a summer bird?
It's a resident.
We like resident Vermillion flycatchers.
Then they all raise the family here, and you'll see some young ones that don't look like that daddy bird, which is that bright reddish and black. They're more grayish, so they're not always easy to figure out what they are when you get little gray birds.
Well, speaking of the Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area, some of the guys just drove by here. Well, they're doing a lot of restoration work, and that seems to be what they do along the wetlands. They've taken out a lot of invasive species, right?
Yes, because we have a lot of tamarisk and the Phragmites, which is the tall reedy thing. There was originally a Phragmites here that was natural that the Native Americans used, but this Phragmites is an invasive species.
But it's pretty.
And it can be utilized, but too much of it just pushes all the native vegetation out. And we want more of the reeds because that's where like we might get soras, or like the gallinules might be in those reedy areas where this gets almost too thick for any birds to get into.
Now, what about the Yuma clapper rail? That name changed, but it is still a rail. That's kind of a, if we see that, we're super lucky, right?
Right. That's now called the Ridgeway rail, and we more often hear it than we see it. So, and again, it's in the reeds. It nests in the reeds. It hides in the reeds. So you're really lucky if you get to see that one.
I'm watching a beaver right across from us. You can barely see him move, but he is right there at the bottom of those reed thingies that you're talking about. But he's floating. He's way across from us, but there's a beaver. I love it.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of gone still now, but he's there. So there it is. Beaver sighting as we do a radio interview. That is the first for me. I like that. I like it. So the east and west wetlands, you can actually walk the whole way. There's paths that you can cycle on, you can walk on. But this is a big part of what happens in the festival. I know that there's a guided walking tour of the West Wetlands because there's also a butterfly garden and a hummingbird garden and, of course, all the trees, the cottonwoods. So that's one of the activities?
Yes, and we have leading that activity VNA, who is in charge of the East Wetlands, and she's a great birder. She has her degree in environmental science and can point out the common bushes and trees around here, so you'll learn the names of plants as well as find birds. So she's a great resource to have as a leader.
Is she also doing the one here for the East Wetlands?
She's doing the East Wetlands, I'm sorry. The West Wetlands, we have Karen Reichard, who's a botanist, who is a retired BLM employee, and so her strength is in the plant identification, but she is also a member of Audubon and a birder.
See, that's all connected, right?
It is. So we are encouraging people to plant more natives because we'll bring in more of the native birds, and they'll be residents in our parks, and that's important.
When we were driving across through Kansas and Missouri, we actually saw at the rest areas, they're actually planting monarch stations, native plant gardens, and I think that's something we should really encourage people to do across the country.
I've been to Chicago, and they're planting prairie plants that look, years ago they took out, but now they're letting it go back to prairie type things. So across the nation, and here we want people to be planting things that are appropriate for the desert.
When we one of the gardens we went to on the first annual Yuma Bird Nature and History Festival was the Moody Gardens, and we keep going back, and it's really interesting because that shows kind of the history of agriculture here in Arizona and Yuma specifically, but also shows what can grow here along with crops and everything.
The Moody Garden is maintained by Master gardeners, and Janine Lane will be leading a walk through there. It is both native and desert adapted, and there is that agricultural area, so you can see how to grow vegetables here, because when you move to Yuma and you haven't lived in this kind of climate, you're surprised to find that you should plant your lettuce and tomatoes and things in the winter time, not in the summer.
Right.
So that's it's a wonderful opportunity to learn more about your own home gardening.
The other place I thought was really fascinating for native plants was the Yuma Conservation Garden, and I know Val took us around there. That's also back on the schedule again. Yeah,
Val will be leading that particular opportunity too, and she's the president of the Native Plant Society here in Yuma, so and a biologist retired from YPG, so she's and her passion is eating as many of the desert plants as she can without getting herself poisoned. So she'll show you which ones are edible.
We had cookies with her, remember?
Yeah.
Last time with a jam, that she made, and then she opened up the prickly pear cactus for us as well. So that was really, really cool. Nancy, you mentioned YPG, and for everyone who hasn't been to Yuma, YPG is the Yuma Proving Grounds, and this is big in regards to military history. So this brings in some of the people history that we'll be covering in the Yuma Bird Nature History Festival. So that's a special tour because you can't just go there, right?
Right. If you were to approach that facility, you have to give your social security number, show your passport, all kinds of things. But we have a connection with Bill Heidner, who's the director of their military museum there. And we have a van that will be going out, 2 vans, I believe, going out there. So you get through the gate real quickly and straight to the museum. They have a wonderful program planned for us, including military history, and a biologist will be there and talk about birds that occur on that base and what they're doing to protect those birds.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Also, speaking of history, Wings over Yuma, that is being put together by Bruce Gwynn, right?
Right.
And what does that cover?
That's about aviation. So the first landing in Arizona by Mr. Robert Fowler occurred at the Landing Restaurant area. There's a big statue there. So Mr. Gwynn will be talking about all the kinds of aviation, like the woodhouse that I forget how many days they were up in the air.
49 days, I think.
It was like, yes. Yeah, I mean, you think
nonstop flying.
You think about certain body functions that need to be
the first thing that goes to my mind is like, how did you go pee-pee? Well, you're up in the sky for so many days, you know. But they put what, you know, there was a little car underneath them, and that was back in the 40s, right? Because they were trying to...
In the 50s.
50s, yeah.
Past World War I.
Get people, after World War II to come out here and use this for aviation. And, you know, people like Amelia Earhart have been through here, and the Powder Puff Derby, and the history of aviation here is so fascinating. And he's hosting it at the Yuma Landing Bar and Grill, right? That's where it's going to be held?
Oh, no, it's going to be at the Sanguinetti House.
Oh, that's right, because then Yana does a presentation at the Sanguinetti, which is also a museum, and this is a historic family of the area.
Right, because Mr. Gwynn's family owned the restaurant right there next to the Sanguinetti House, so it's all part of their family unit. So he'll really engage everybody in the history of aviation in Yuma.
And then Yana at the Sanguinetti Museum is talking about the mysteries of Yuma.
And it's always fun, So there is some ghosts that are still lurking in the area. Elizabeth Post is supposed to still be in Post School. People see her at the window at night. So, it's fun stuff.
Didn't Marilyn Monroe come out here at some point? There's some you know that old hotel right downtown?
I haven't heard Marilyn Monroe, but... older movie stars like John Wayne.
I know Bob Hope and Hattie McGuinn.
I forgot.
McDaniel. Hattie McDaniel. I'm going to get her name right. From Miss Scarlet. I stayed at the Coronado Motor Hotel, which is the same property of the Yuma Landing. Talk about family history. That's also part of it. Yvonne Peach, co-owner of the Coronado Motor Hotel. She has her own museum, and her historical society is, really connected with everything that's going on for this festival. She'll also be leading a tour in the Casa de Coronado Museum, which really shows history of tourism here, the history of tourism. Like, she's got those old guidebooks where people were driving down Route 66 and those old school, I love them.
And fascinating furniture too. From the old motel days where I think it was a radio that was embedded in this little table. That one was sort of fascinating to me.
She's also got I remember doing the research with her on this. One of the very first ways of wake-up calls, and there's this little timer thing, and it looks like a little twisty thing, but it was actually invented by a cab driver, and that's how cabs first knew how to time how long they were driving people. And it was also, but it all derived from Napa Valley, and that's how they used to time how long wine was being fermented.
Interesting.
So, I know. So anyway, I just remember we were going through this going, no way. But she has that's some hotel history for sure.
Yeah, love that. It's everybody, that's a must on your list to see that.
Yeah, so that's it. So we've got that for history, and then Tammy Snook, she's a city historian, right? And she's going to be doing a presentation on the history of the Colorado River, and that really ties into why this is the Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area, how so many people came through here to get to California for the gold rush, the Juan Bautista de Anza expedition that came through here that actually founded the Presidio in San Francisco. So you can actually, that's part of a National Heritage Area now, or National Historic Trail. So a lot.
Yes, definitely. Tammy is very knowledgeable, and she does a very good presentation. So if you want to know more about, of course, how Europeans settled along the river, she'll be able to tell you about that.
Exactly. Sure. Native American history. That's something that's a big part of this, because we're here by the Kitsan, we're also by the Kokopaws, and so the Kokopah Museum, that's a big event that's happening.
Yeah, that will be a sort of a feature on Saturday afternoon. We'll take some vans down to the Kokopah Reservation. It's called the West Reservation of their properties. And there is a little museum there that you get to tour with the museum director. And then you will be able to watch people make fry bread. Then you'll be able to make your own fry bread. There'll be other side dishes, beans or honey or powdered sugar to put on your fry bread. So come hungry, because we'll be able to feed you some really interesting Indian food.
And that area is like the history in that museum is something that people should put on their list anytime they come here.
Oh, definitely, yes. We need to celebrate the Native American cultural history here in our area. So, and the Gashans across the way. Chase Chayot is going to be leading the sunrise trip over on the north side of the river, which he'll be able to talk about his culture too.
Oh, it's fascinating. Nancy and I did that last year, or this year, I should say. I keep forgetting what year we're in. But we did that on the first annual festival, and the sunrise at Sunrise Park is second to none. I think it rivals Maine. Acadia National Park, if you go up Cadillac Mountain. I don't know. I haven't done that yet, but the sunrise there was amazing, as is the bird life, and also the history is pretty deep, and he really explains things that you don't get to really hear about or talk about that often.
And I would like to just mention our trip over to the Sultan Seed. It's in California. It's about a 90-mile trip over there. But last year, see, I'm saying that too.
It's my fault.
It's January of this year, our first annual. We arrived right at sunrise, and there were thousands of snow geese that lifted off, and the sun just caught the underside of their wings. It was magnificent. I wish I had my camera. Other people did get some.
Wish too.
Oh my God, it was just fabulous. So there are thousands of snow geese over there, Ross's geese, if you know the difference between those two. They also get, my mind is slipping.
This is a Sunny Bono, right? Sunny Bono Sultan Seed. It's a national wildlife refuge, and this isn't one of the globally important birding areas that are out here.
Yes, so wintertime they get thousands and thousands of birds over there, shore birds of all sorts, ducks of all sorts. And there's several different viewing places, and for those of you who are interested in rocks too, there's an obsidian hill where you can actually legally pick up obsidian in big old hunks. So it's that beautiful black rock.
Yeah.
So yes, there's viewing stations, platforms, so you can get up high, get some nice pictures. Last year we had a lot of rain. That was unusual for us here in the desert Southwest, but it was nice, except for the mud.
Hey, mud is always good. Speaking of mud, you're going up Muggins Mountain.
Muggins Mountain. It's a rugged hike. It's about a 5-mile hike. It's not for the faint of heart, but good hiking shoes, some hiking sticks, and the plant life in there is very, very diverse. You walk through some wash areas, so you get different kinds of plants. You get to the top, and certainly different types of plants. Well worth a little bit of physical effort to do that 5-mile hike. It's a round hike, so you start, but to get there you do need 4-wheel drive. Because the road in is terrible.
Yeah. That's what happens when you go out in, the boonies. It's part of the adventure, I think. And then you also go to Betty's Kitchen, and that's also another really cool birding area.
It is. It's the site of I believe it's the first dam on the river, the Colorado River, that occurred, and there's still a spillway right there. It's a nice park area too, so there are picnic places and bathrooms, so that's always nice to know. But a good place to see ducks, shorebirds, hawks flying over,
Nice.
ospreys flying over.
One of the best ways, I think, to really get connected with nature is to take a canoe trip, and that's a thing that's happening the very first day of the festival on Friday, is a canoe trip where, you get to really just get out on the Colorado River in a group setting, and the guides, run by the city of Yuma, the guides are really good.
Oh, fun trip. I've done it a couple of times too, and yes, I do recommend that one for sure.
And the bat viewing, that was a big hit last year, or this year.
This year, yeah, we'll do it. So we'll be doing that again. I do want to make sure that people will wear comfortable walking shoes to get there to the Bat Cave. It's an old mine that now is closed off. So it's safe, but the bats are able to get in and out of that, and there are thousands of bats that live in that cave, and you get there right at sunset when the bats are starting to come out. Bats are wonderful eaters of insects, so they've come out at night to feast on whatever's flying around.
It's neat. It's really neat. I'm also going back to some more of the fun is you're having a trivia night. So everyone's going to, here it is. How much do we know on birds, nature, and history? That'll be happening at the Yuma Landing Bar and Grill. And also there's going to be a workshop on getting started in tracing your family history. That is always interesting because we always find out something we're not supposed to know about, right? Because, way back when, families kept secrets. So that's another part of it. So it really seems like this is going to be a really epic event. One last thing we didn't mention was the Senator's Wash. Where's that?
Senator's Wash is on the California side of the river. If you go up S24, up that past Imperial Dam on the California side, it's a huge reservoir with very deep water. So that's during our Christmas bird count, we always find a loon up there. So our Nature and Birding Festival is the January 10th through the 12th. The loons should still be around. So if there's one up there, come out to Senator's Wash and perhaps you'll see it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy. This is going to be a really cool event. Everybody, again, January 10th through 12th, 2020. So we'll get our year right on that. And then just go to YumaBirdNatureHistoryFestival.com and the itinerary's there. You do need to register in advance for these, a lot of these different activities because of vans and making sure everybody has enough space on the van. And there's packed lunches. There's all kinds of things. So just go to YumaBirdNatureHistoryFestival.com.